Okay, so welcome back. It is 2026, and it's the first of these installments. In theory, we could well be building to in the kind of final build up towards Badwater this year. So let's see. Anyway, how are you getting on, Fletch? How's this week been?
Yeah, good, good. This week's been a bit of a baptism of fire after the holiday season. We had a very busy kid-fueled flu situation over Christmas, and so we're quite actually happy to get back to work again in some ways. 'Cause, like, we're just happy to see the back of Christmas, but it's been a bombshell seeing everyone's plans up and running. London Marathon around the corner, very busy time for us programming-wise, and Badwater about to approach in regards to application and building everything up for that too.
Yeah, no, that's the same. Well, I started 2026, sat at my desk, and it was all raring to go. And then by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in bed with a fever. So that was not the beginning of the year I was hoping for. And it's sort of slightly derailed at the start. Certainly from a training perspective, it's slightly derailed this first bit. So we can jump into that in a second. But yeah, I'm still coughing. What's the phrase? A productive cough or something disgusting like that. So yeah, so that's where we are at the moment. Yeah, like you said, the Badwater application is open, so I have the questions in front of me, as it were. Got a few more days to go over the application and finalise that, and then we are waiting to hear. I think it's the 1st of Feb, but certainly early in February we find out what's happening. So that will frame the year, or certainly the first half of the year. But I guess for now we just carry on as normal, or whatever normal is when you're coughing your lungs up every. So yeah, so we're yeah. I've not done a huge amount. I suppose when we last spoke we didn't last speak, but last kind of one of these was pre-Christmas, just after Daytona. Took it pretty easy, did a few bits and bobs, sort of more social runs and stuff like that. And then just when I was thinking about limbering up and getting back into training, I got whatever this weird virus is that's going around, and now I'm not really doing much. We need a plan, Fletch. We need a plan to get back to normal. And I think one of the things we talked about at the end of last year was the kind of outcome of Daytona was trying to work out how to carry the pace forward all the way through the race. So how to, I guess sort of stamina is not the right word, but reducing fatigue or increasing strength, or whichever way we kind of want to look at it. But that was where we left last year. So maybe we can touch on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, actually quite timely because one of our other online coaches is doing his PhD in durability, which is sort of now the fourth dimension of endurance performance that sort of has been off the back of a guy called Andy Jones, who was Kipchoge's physiologist and also Paul Radcliffe's physiologist for the Breaking 2 projects, etc., and the world record attempt she did. And so we've been talking about that quite a lot over the past couple of weeks. The durability piece is this drop off in performance that we see. So kind of like in your example, when we were halfway through, relatively smooth, aka the paces was feeling quite comfortable. And then at some point that pace becomes really challenging to maintain, even though the pace hasn't changed, and you feel like you're fueling appropriately still and blah, blah. So a couple of factors to bear in mind with not only the Daytona attempt, but also just any of these sort of things is race pace is generally so different to the training pace. So also when you're going for a PB or even an unknown attempt, like you just feels good today, let's see what we can do. It's always going to be slightly out of your comfort zone. And that's kind of something you can't always prepare for necessarily, because in order to do that, you then just have to go and run the race itself at the pace, and therefore you don't do that in training, right? So we kind of have to prepare almost like philosophically around the pace itself. Strength training, like you mentioned, great way of doing that. There's some load of research into how strength training can maintain durability or increase it and therefore decrease the drop-off rate. But also, we now start to build volume, which is where there is a lot of evidence looking at like runs at over 30K have a big impact, especially for marathon stuff, but the durability of maintaining that body's ability to hold the speed for longer.
I can see where this is heading.
Yeah. Signpost, turn left for volume.
Yeah, exactly.
So like last year's focus for us, I think maybe just to jump on a soapbox for a second, I think this is where a lot of people struggle with the concept of training for endurance races, because they always approach every race as this is the last race I'm ever going to do. And therefore I'm going to throw the entire kitchen sink at it. I'm going to do volume, and I'm going to do intensity, and I'm going to do strength training, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. When really it does play out over like an Olympic cycle. And you're kind of building up to one big crescendo in like many years' times. And last year, the main focus for us was intensity. We wanted to get pace up, get confidence up, especially downhill is kind of where it all started. Then on the flat, how do we maintain pace for longer, holding those faster speeds, etc. And now we've got that up and playing. I mean, also not factoring in, you got a huge PB on that race, an hour or something off of it.
More than, yeah.
3 hours from your official one, but then...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was kind of hard because the other one came during Nova Coley, so don't really have a kind of comparable one. But yeah, definitely a lot quicker.
Exactly. And so that's kind of something you have to factor in. So that was a huge effort. And yes, we saw a drop off because you were at your edge of your body's abilities, which is brilliant. So now how do we improve that as well? So run faster again for longer, but also now is the time to get stronger. Now we've built intensity up. Another variable we can play in is volume. So we can get strong now, then build volume on top of that, maintain intensity as much as possible, and then we have another race and see how we're getting on. And that's kind of like the Olympics cycle method of build some attribute, focus on another one, bring it together, boom, race, see how to go. Build an attribute, build another one, boom, race, see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think, it plays into, thinking back to my rowing days, the boat race program was every year, so it was different, but the on the national team, you could see, some crews would dominate every year, right? They just were quicker, but there was definitely a confidence of the sort of top performing teams and crews and squads to not, to perform to win the final. And that meant, early races, early season stuff was ensuring everything was right, but not necessarily top speed. And I think that's, we're talking about a slightly different cycle and all the rest of it, but that idea, like, you have to be confident to work on the bit you've got to work on now, knowing that you can still flex the other things later. And you see that, I think you also see that in teams or performances, even through a competition. It's like in the heats, they're still working on something. It's like still perfecting something, and everyone's like, oh no, they didn't win the heat or they didn't do this. It's like, no, you don't. The winners are aiming to perform in the final, not that standout performance in the heat. And you see it so often. It's like, oh, amazing! Like their first race, their first this. It's like that. Winners don't compete for their first heat. You've got to get that. You've got to be approaching it for that thing. And like you said, that, thinking back, Nova Coley was downhill sprints and realizing my legs could move fast enough to see like a 3 on a split and things. But, and again, like same with Daytona, it's like, okay, now not forgetting, we can't just ignore those things, but we have to maintain them. But it's like, right, what's next? And yeah, I think that's it's harder, right? It takes a certain, whether it's self-confidence or just confidence, to believe in that process, because otherwise, you just, like you say, like people throw everything at it.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no real evolution there.
And we kind of sat down, this is maybe semi on topic, but we sat down with the company yesterday, and the whole workshop that we did was around goal setting. And one of the goals that one of the ladies says, I want to run a half marathon. And so what we were basically suggesting was that all well and good giving yourself that goal, but once you achieve that goal, what then? That there's no longevity in that goal, because once you achieve that half marathon, there's no sort of chapter 2 of what that looks like, unless you then go, cool, my next goal is dot. So what we wanted to reframe it for this particular person was, okay, rather than having that end result being the main focus, what's the system you're going to put in place to achieve that, but also give you flexibility to pivot if you want? So, for example, we said, how about a goal of, I'm going to run every Tuesday and Friday? The end result could be that she does a half marathon, but actually the habit that she's forming is not about achieving something. It's about sticking to something. And then she's also zooming out a lot more, being like, well, this is now my habit for 10 years' time. I'm going to be doing this for 2 decades, whatever. And I'm going to achieve maybe many things off the back of this. And so that's kind of how we look at it with training people for these events, is they focus on the next 12 weeks and that's it. When actually, if you zoom out and look over the next 10 years, what do you want to be working on over that time period that allows you to be the best you can be?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I mean, I suppose there's the most common, maybe not the most common, but one example of this is this whole, it's like the zone 2 thing. How many people leap into a race without any kind of form of base? And the most obvious, one of the most talked about versions of this kind of idea is like, just disappear, go off, disappear for a few years and just plod along. Like, because in a way, that's the hard, loads of people starting out, that's like a really hard discipline. It's like, you're going to have to run slow for a really long time to get, and then you can start adding this other stuff on top. And it's an extension of that, I suppose. So we actually see this much more than we think, but it's hard in the moment. It's hard, right? Because of course you compare, you look at the previous time you did the same thing, you're like, oh, this is harder or slower or whatever. So and then I think, and the other bit that I suppose at some point I'm now going to seek permission. I think I need like a hot holiday for some sort of preparation. And I think for the benefit of everyone, Fletch is here for trainers. He's here for
Send me your requests.
Send in those requests. So as you can tell, I've got like 3. I'm in my house with like 3 jumpers on.
I can't sign off on that expense, unfortunately. But I think there's to back that up though. There's definitely a warm weather training camp available somewhere for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, not just downstairs with a heater on.
Welcome to Florida in your shed.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that hot actually out there. It was actually quite cold in the morning of the race. But it really was not hot.
Yeah.
By all accounts, the Florida Keys one, I can't remember what they called it, some of the people that raced it, but there's a nickname for a section of it where there's a sort of forest. You tend to go through around midday and there's a lot of trees and you're in this like almost like valley of heat.
Hot
it's
box.
Like there's no wind. Yeah, like this kind of hot box. Very good. So what? So I guess the other thing is I've got this hacking cough, and so let's touch on that. What the hell should I do? Because it's fair to say it's pissing me off now.
I can see from your notes on the platform, you're like, I'm bored now.
yeah, exactly.
Let me just quickly bring up your schedule so far. So we've been keeping you off plan for over Christmas and so on. I think it's really nice to have that break mentally, to not just have a bit of freedom and to kind of be off. But what we know with a lot of people in your position is like you, so you like having that routine, you like knowing where you are. And this is actually a great time to see these kind of comments where it's like, bored now, want to start training. That's something that we see a lot in this turning point of when the body's starting to show that it can perform. You almost start getting like a cat on a hot tin roof. I need to get moving, get off this. That being said, with the illness side of things, it's a real fine balance because your body. I'm not anyway medically qualified, but my understanding of it from this perspective is the symptoms of you are experiencing, like it depends how graphic we're going to get about this, but the stuff that you're producing when you cough.
The green lumps of
the chunky cereal breakfast you cough up. That is your immune system producing that to kill off the virus. It kind of traps it, wraps it up, and then gets rid of it. Same through your nose. So the symptoms we're trying to actually get rid of with the medications and so on is your body's natural immune system kicking in. So we don't want to, obviously, and then the beautiful thing about that is it goes overboard, and that's when we start we can't breathe. We feel like we're blocked nose and so on, to the worst case scenario of massive chest infections and pneumonia, etc. So my understanding of it is we need the body to preserve energy for that sole outcome of getting over the virus. And your immune system is very expensive when it comes to calorie intake. So that's why a lot of people, when they come off the back of an illness, suddenly they're ravenous and they're kind of eating everything. Because generally you lose weight when you're really ill, or you feel like you haven't got an appetite, and then suddenly, boom, you're back into things and like you're emptying the fridge. Training when ill is okay if you're in this kind of zone that you are now, where it's starting to get better, like you're on the up. volume and intensity are down, we have to reduce it. So for yourself, we're probably going to be looking at, like you did K last week, 3K the week before that. So you see a big drop off when that illness kicked in. And then this week we've already gone to 8. So I'll probably say maybe another 2 runs this week, or it's around that 5 to 6 kilometer mark. Just start keeping the body into routine. And then next week we'll add a bit more work in. Okay, so we've got a bit more of the, just see if there's a little bit more work happening over that weekend, for example. Let's just do our first long run of 15, for example. So I'll start planning bits in around giving you probably a session tomorrow and then a session on the weekend. And we can kind of play out that way, like Thursday and Sunday. And then from next week, that's when we can start adding a bit more volume in, see how your body responds to it. Primary focus is get better whilst training, rather than train, get worse, pull back on training, get better, train, get worse, pull back on training, get better, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Like recover well, recover once kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think as well, something we've not done in the past on here is scheduling the schedule the weight sessions or schedule strength sessions, because I think if it's in the same way as I just will metronomically follow the instruction of what splits you want me to hit, I think if the strength sessions are kind of scheduled in as well, I'm more likely to do them because they're not as habitual as normal going out and running is. And I think that would be a positive sort of step. Exactly what's in them, it's not so fussed at this state. We can add, tweak what the contents are, but just sort of making sure they're in there, because I think otherwise it's just one of those things that I might do all this things slip by. I don't keep them. I do have over there a little wall chart where I literally old school, none of this. I mean, obviously do all the Strava stuff, but tick off: did I go for a run? Did I do my back exercises? But I just think part of that scheduling is having those sessions in as well, and making really bedding it in as a much more habitual.
Yeah, most definitely. And through the platform, we can easily set those strength sessions up and exactly what session to do, the weights we can allocate to that as well. The main thing with the strength stuff, and we can go through that now really, is access, not only to a place. And we know you've got a gym membership, but what equipment does that gym have? And therefore, what can we push it on? Just for whoever is listening in, even though you are looking at an ultra endurance, I would say ultra endurance race, does not necessarily mean we are looking at ultra endurance weights either as part of that specificity. So specificity is probably the biggest killing point when it comes to weight training. So this is quite a fun experiment to kind of throw in, like, what strength and conditioning are we going to do to prepare you as an ultra endurance athlete for an ultra endurance event, using probably quite traditional strength methods. So it's a really nice sort of session I'm already thinking of that we can start to formulate into place around.
When you say really nice session, there's something in the back of my mind.
The hairs in the back of your head.
I'm thinking I'll do that session, and then 2 days later I will not be able to walk.
That's exactly the feeling that a lot of people have when it comes to doing weights. But my outcome that I would like to have off the back of doing a weight session is that the next run feels better, not feels like you can't do it.
Yeah. Okay,
and that's kind of like
buy that.
Yeah. So we have this principle when it comes to all training, but it's minimum effective dose. And so what's the smallest amount we need to do to get the biggest result? And the biggest result we're looking for is not soreness. In fact, the biggest result we're looking for is strength and power output. We need that strength to increase. That does come down to programming. So rather than going, okay, right, here's a massive strength workout, tomorrow you're running a 30K run, go.
Yeah, exactly.
First week of doing strength.
I think that's partly why, the kind of desire to have it as part of that whole program, because, if you just fit it in when you think, and then, it doesn't fit the kind of cycle of the week, it unravels. You can't do it properly, or it doesn't happen, or it has a negative impact on your next session, and therefore you haven't had the benefit.
Definitely. So it's going to be a little bit of a special case with yourself just because of your back history. So we have to kind of factor that into mind. So the recommendations we provide over the next sort of coming months around your strength is going to be specifically guided towards you because of your history. So other people listening in and kind of taking on that knowledge may not necessarily directly implement their training, but they can at least learn how to navigate things if they need to. So we're going to probably focus on machine weights to begin with as a first point of call, because machines invoke a lot of stability, which we need in order to increase power output. Another thing we can think of is a thing called isometrics. So isometric exercises, for those who want to understand it, is a non-moving muscle contraction. So imagine sitting into a leg extension machine. So where you sit into it and you kind of kick your legs out and you're working the quadricep muscle, the one on the front of your thigh. You stack the weight so heavy that you physically could not kick your leg out. Doesn't mean you're lifting a heavy weight. It means that you're pushing against something that can't be moved. And all you're going to do then is push against it at a tailored intensity, and the weight's not going to move anywhere, but the muscle contraction is continuous. That's what we call an isometric exercise. So for yourself, what we're probably going to look at is something like a leg extension machine where you're kicking your leg out. We're going to hold that isometric for like 30 seconds, and we're going to be pushing anywhere between 80 to 100% effort. The great thing about that, even though it sounds potentially terrifying, is that the great thing about that is it doesn't actually produce that much damage in comparison to doing repped attempts of the muscle of the exercise, because most of the damage actually happens in the eccentric, the lowering phase of that, similar to downhill running, kind of what we were doing it for before. So we're using the concentric muscle contraction to produce power and muscle force into the tendons and the sinews, etc., the muscle fibers, but we're not getting so much damage, which means we can do probably more of it, and also we can go a bit harder. So that'll be where we probably start things.
I think you do one, you told me about it before, a sort of same idea. It's a bit like doing a kind of deadlift, but instead of a bar, you use a towel so you're kind of pulling against nothing. You're pulling against something that doesn't move, right?
Yourself,
so you're doing that exact thing. Yeah. I seem to remember. I mean, I remember doing some of those, and like it sounds ridiculous that you're not doing anything apart from just pulling against a towel under your feet.
Yeah.
But you get like lightheaded. I mean, it's like it really, like. So hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I will look forward to that. I think the other thing probably, and it's probably not one to open the kind of, maybe it's for a bit later once we know an outcome from the application, but is thinking about other, I was left feeling post Daytona like the best way to test that fatigue is like in a race situation. Like it's just, you aren't, it's not total training. There's something about the race situation to do it. So I think that's something looking at the rest of the kind of window, how many next 6 months, whatever it is, choosing some races and looking at what's available and what we can do to reinforce that. Well, to reinforce the training, but also to test stuff out as we go a bit, as well as just the normal training stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
We can have a think about the kind of things. I mean, the trouble is, as we've said before, like it's just not many long road events. There just aren't that many. So, something to think about.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think the way we would approach this now would be what's called a GPP, so general performance program. So we're just kind of covering a lot of bases, putting the foundations in place, and then once we know what we're preparing for, we backtrack from there. So what's the last big session going to be before that race? And we program that week, and the week before that, and the week before that, and then kind of going back to where we are now. Yeah, as soon as we know what we're preparing for, we can get specific. Up until then, we're just generally preparing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first thing is to fill the application in.
Yeah.
And then get it sorted. But
for those who don't know, what kind of questions are they asking? Because it's obviously quite a unique application process.
It certainly is. I was just thinking that because I was trying to find the question, because it's one of the questions. I mean, this is the challenge with it, is there's a whole load of stuff you must answer, right? What races have you done here, there, and everywhere? And making sure you've ticked the specific entry requirements. But some of them are, I think some of these are not very easy questions to answer. So one that sticks out is this one, which is, in 25 words or less, tell us the qualities of a good sports person, and does this describe you?
25 words.
it's exactly like 25 words to describe, the qualities of a good sports person, and does this describe you? Another one of the other questions is 50 words or less. Why do you want to compete in or return to the Badwater Ultra Marathon? In 100 words or less, so endless space here. 100 words or less. What is your specific evidence to support your predicted finishing time?
Wow.
And so, and there's other stuff as well, but they are, when you dig into it, they're quite challenging things. When you've got to get a kind of point across. You've got to stand out. I have no idea how many applicants there are.
Yep.
I knew there are 100 places. About 70 will be for newbies, and about 30 are returning. But yeah, 25 words or less. I mean, if you start writing anything, I don't know, can you hyphenate words to like bring it in? So there we are. So yeah, so that's the remainder of this week's task. While I'm coughing, I'll focus on that. See, and as I think I said last time, quite a few people at Daytona. There was a lot of bad water kit around. Lots of people had done it. A lot of people were like, people just don't get in the first time round. So we shall see.
We shall see. Keep fighting the good fight.
Exactly.
Keep training for it. I think so this first part really is just assume we're going for it and what foundations we need to put in place for now. And then we backtrack from a time trial or a sort of a tester race, and then build up towards something around that sort of time in the diary anyway. Then go from there.
Exactly. And the reality is, if I don't do Badwater's end of July, Keys 100 is May. If I did that, or Nova Colia is May, there's clear kind of, there's a good few months before we're doing anything of a sizable thing. So there's that. It's quite nice to feel like there's that time to, improve on something. Improve on some specific stuff.
Love it. Very cool.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I will go out for a run tomorrow and see at what stage I start coughing.
Yeah.
Not that, but it's the frustrating thing is I keep thinking it's gone, right? You kind of, it's not that bad, and it's definitely reducing. And it's that, like you said, it's that balance between, well, it's reducing, how quickly will it disappear, versus doing something and yeah. We shall see.
Yeah, and this is actually for most people, this is quite a dangerous spot to be in, because they are starting to feel better. They're kind of getting a bit frustrated, and therefore they're like, I'm just going to go out. I'm just going to get back to normal again. I'll just force it to get better. And actually what tends to happen is it tends gets worse. And then we have to then, like you've kind of said, a multiple recovery transitions to be then like, oh man, I just can't get rid of this cough. It's like, well, because you keep on bloody training. You keep pushing the body to recover from the sessions and from wherever you're healing from. And it becomes endless cycles.
Yeah. I definitely, I felt that. I can't remember when I was last kind of felt a bit ropey at some point last year. And I remember, you saying, just take another day. And it was like, there's this kind of intense, this necessity or feeling that you must go. And you're like, it doesn't matter, just take another day. I was like, okay, well, if Fletch says it doesn't matter, then it's all right, And it was, of course, it was all right. It's like one day in 365, like it's irrelevant, right? But
exactly,
it is hard. Like it's hard to kind of keep that perspective, I suppose, and not think you're slipping away or turning into a total like couch potato, which is what I feel like I am now.
Looking great for a potato. I think this is kind of leaning into what we're going to be talking about at the end of January at the Alive event, is how the mentality around endurance sports is a quite unique mentality, because it is that go. We've spoke this probably on the first one we ever did, was like, what's the mentality you've got that's probably your stroke. But it's also the same mentality that creeps in towards the end of an injury rehab. So illness and injury are of the same ilk, is something to recover from. And we see a lot of people who have more complicated cases, and they've started training for something. A little bit of a niggle crops up. They push through it because their plan says they have to. They've downloaded an unempathetic training app. And then it goes, cool, you got a 10K run to do today. Like, oh, my hip feels a bit niggly, but fine. Okay, I'll just do it. And suddenly now you've got a stress fracture and you're 6 months off, and you've then got to try and rebuild your thing from there. Flip it around. Taking 1 week off has shown no drop off in fitness whatsoever. even to the point where they bedridden some athletes for up to 6 months. I mean, that must have been the sign-ups for that study must have been either like polarized, I'll do it because I get bedridden for 6 months, or like, hell no, get away from me. But there was no drop-off in fitness at all until around 4 weeks of complete bedridden activity. So they weren't doing anything and they were just laying in bed all day. Then suddenly we saw quite a steep drop-off in fitness. Up until that point, if they only maintained 20% of their overall training volume, that drop-off didn't happen until like 3 months later. So there is a huge like carryover. If you just keep doing something, but reduce it right down, then you're probably going to be absolutely fine. And I think some people really struggle with this because actually probably the perception of the fitness is dropping off much quicker than the actual fitness is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that old joke, isn't there? Like, form is temporary, but class lasts forever. It's like tongue-in-cheek, tongue-in-cheek version of it. But I think it's, I suppose the flip side is, this, or we know this because we know how hard it is to get fit. Like how hard it is, all that training to shift something on a, lactate curve a bit, Well, so of course the opposite, which is not, training is the application of load. The lack of load is not the equal and opposite. It's far less negative, if that makes sense. So it does that. It doesn't mean it makes your head a better place
Yeah.
in the process, but it does. It does make sense, right? It's very hard to make a change. It's very hard to, if people go to the gym and start wondering why they aren't suddenly, completely ripped. It's like, because it takes a really long time. So the flip, the flip side of that would make complete sense. So
yeah, was it
I'll take that on board. I'll take that on board and try not to lose my shit in the next couple of days.
What are the scratches on the wall behind you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it was Newton's third. One of the laws of physics was that a body will always resist the force that's been applied on it up until a certain point. So that's why when you pull the tablecloth off the table, the glasses, if you've done it fast enough, will stay where they are because they always want to stay. They don't really, they're reluctant to change. And that's exactly what you just said around fitness is it's reluctant to shift. It's expensive to change things and chop off muscle fibers and so on. So yeah, let's see how you get on.
I'll come back next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all right. I'll survive. It's just that niggling feeling of like, have I forgotten how to run?
Yeah. So you'll come wearing a baseball cap and wearing a gilet and talking about the stock exchange next week.
Yeah, exactly.
He's hit the midlife.
Completely changed. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff.
All right.
Well, Fletch, I will speak to you next week. And in the meantime, I will try and cough less than I did the day before.
Beautiful. 1% better every day.
Nice one.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, mate.